counts it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming at you live from episode 16 of Life on the Rocks with your host, Councillor Rocques. Today's featured guest in the hot seat is my good friend, Michael Vagnini. How are you, Mike?
I'm great. Glad to be here today.
Absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to have Mike on here. For anyone who doesn't know, Mike is the Ward 2 Councillor for the City of Greater Sudbury. He is also a chartered financial consultant. He is also the chair of the Greater Sudbury Police Board, as well as the director for the province of Ontario for the Canadian Police Board. Mike, what don't you do? Seriously, I gotta ask, what do you know?
Well, you know, I've had a real great career in the financial industry for 34 years, and my father actually was a councillor for the town of Walden for 6 terms right up until he passed away in 1994.
Okay.
So for 20 years, people had asked me to run, but I was raising my children, and I said no. So this last election, I said, okay, I'll throw my hat into the ring.
Give it a shot.
And there were 76 councillor candidates that were running across the city, and I had the good fortune of taking the most votes.
Wow.
And it's not because of me directly, but it's because I had an excellent team working with me, and we covered about 96% of the homes in Ward 2.
Wow, definitely. That's huge. Out of 73 people, you're able to pull ahead of a lot of people. You know, you see that in different fluctuations. But just to begin here, I want to start this off. Mike, what got you started in general? So like you said, you've been in the financial sector for 34 years, then transitioned into politics. Also, for anyone who doesn't know out there, Mike he's also a mixed martial artist. So you come in from obviously a very versatile angle. But just to get started, what got you started just in the financial industry in general?
Well, when I came out of university, I thought, you know, I had 3 job opportunities, and one of them was working for London Life and commission sales. And I said, well, I can always go to another role, but I want to see what commission is like, and I'll stay there for 6 months to 2 years, and then I'll move on and find a different type of stable type of income. So after 34 years, I haven't found that, and I continue to stay in the financial industry. But the whole lay of the land has changed in the financial industry, and we've gone from an old world where we used to carry a briefcase, knock on people's doors, ask them if they want to buy life insurance, and every month we would stop at their house because there's no automatic debit coming through, and we'd pick up their premiums, and we'd write in the book and at the back door saying, yeah, we picked up this month's premium. So at the end of the week, I would have a large wad of money from all the people's homes that I picked money up. Today, when you walk into my office, there's a big sign that says we do not accept cash. So the whole world has changed in the financial industry, and even the way we provide service today to 34 years ago when I first started.
Definitely, you went from a paper-based, now your digital era. I find, you know, the whole landscape of the world, like you said, has completely changed. So, I mean, you're crossing over from, like, you went through generation to generation, especially with the financial sector. You don't really know anymore. You take guys like Tony Robbins, he's interviewing a lot of these people like Warren Buffett, you know, Paul Tudor Jones, and what he's finding is, you know, with the financial sector in general is, you know, they're dinging a lot of fees. There's a lot of information that people aren't aware to. And what I'm finding as a society is that we have so much information coming at us constantly. It's like, what do you believe? But then you take a gentleman in like yourself with over 34 years of experience, you can see that you kind of know how to do that. So you'd say you're a numbers guy, obviously, right?
Yes.
For that, so financial consultant, that's where you started, but sales as well, right?
Absolutely.
And I know I'm a sales guy as well, you know, an entrepreneur. I come out of that kind of sphere. How important, there's such a stigma associated with the idea of selling, getting started. But if you look at your top entrepreneurs, these people that turn into millionaires, these ones that really have a high impact, you look at their sales skills, that's where they started, was selling. Selling's what generates the money within companies. How important do you think sales is? And before you answer that really quick, I always make the joke, you know, I was selling door to door for 5 months, and I should have been wearing steel toe boots because I had so many doors slammed in my face.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good comment. And I think what we really need to understand is sales is really not about selling something. It's about understanding what the people want. And, you know, so today I don't sell.
Definitely.
I really don't sell. What I do is I listen to what the people want, and then I provide them the A, B, C solution, and they have the opportunity of picking which one fits their needs the most. In the financial industry, I've been here, as I said, 34 years. I've never walked into 2 homes that were identical. Every
Definitely.
home was a little bit different. It's kind of like when you walk into the tailors, you're not going to be wearing the exact same, well, maybe wearing the exact same suit. Mine apparently are a little bit different.
Hopefully not the same shoes though, you know, but go, yeah.
You may be aware of this, but they call me the rogue councillor, and it's very interesting. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit too,
Right.
and I'll talk about. So even in the political side of it, I guess it's understanding what the people want.
Definitely.
So one of the biggest things that I talk about is I don't work for the city, I work for the people. I was hired by them, they're my bosses, they're my employers. When they phone me, when they send me an email, as their employee, I have to respond to them.
Definitely.
And that's what our role is. A role as a councillor is not a position of grandeur. Our role as a councillor is answering to the people and being the voice for the people.
Absolutely. I was going to say, so Ray, not to interject here for a second, it was funny that you actually mentioned about, you know, I titled this, you know, Mike Vagnini, the rogue councillor, and that was something I wanted to touch on because, you know, it always seems the people that go within the majority of sectors, it's always, well, this is the belief, but you've been seen, obviously, in an interview before that you're always trying to interject and go the opposite, and it's not because of controversy or anything, it's just, like you said, it seems that you're more so for the people. And being that obviously you're the director for the province of Ontario for the Canadian Police Board, as well as you're also the chair of the police board of the city of Greater Sudbury, you're dealing with different people all the time, right? You're a people person, you're dealing with different egos and such. Like, what are some things you do specifically to, you know, kind of keep that majority mindset with these people? If you're dealing with different officers.
I'm going to back you up a little
For
bit
sure,
on that one.
definitely.
Because what you did say in there is you're for the voice of the people, and so that's why I vote differently. Maybe that isn't what you said.
Yeah.
That's the way I interpret it. I just want to qualify
For
that.
sure.
Because I am not different than my colleagues from the perspective I think we all want to listen to the people.
Absolutely.
And understand. I look at things from a financial perspective, dollars and cents. I believe, and this is just my interpretation, my colleagues look at it as more of a lifestyle. So I'm really not an individual that supports any of these large scale projects.
Definitely.
I want our infrastructure, our existing infrastructure fixed, our roads, our water, wastewater, whatever the case may be, before we start bringing on any new projects. It's nice to have niceties, and those are the wants. Let me qualify that.
Okay.
Because, if you want to go buy a Jaguar, that's a want.
Exactly.
It's not a need. You could get by with a little Kia
car.
or a smaller car and have the same thing going on. So it's like a person that has a house with a leaking roof, cracked foundation, and they say, geez, you know what? I'm going to go out now and I'm going to put a hot tub in the backyard with a pool and a sunroom. Those are things that you could have, but you need to fix your basement or your roof before you get the wants.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's where my thinking is different. So within the greater city, you want me to keep going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. I was going to say, I was
Okay.
going to interject in a second. I just want to see where this is going for a second.
So,
I
sure.
understand for sure.
So within the greater city of Sudbury, the footprint of the greater city of Sudbury is the same as Prince Edward Island, or almost the same as Prince Edward Island. So at amalgamation, we took these 7 areas and amalgamated them into one. And now what has happened is you have the downtown, or old Sudbury, versus the rural areas. And people say, well, no, that isn't happening in amalgamation, but reality is that has happened in amalgamation. And we just went through a whole process about our fire services called optimization. And what it did is it cast the downtown and the rural areas into completely 2 different directions again. And that's unfortunate that happens. And we really have to focus on a plan where we have structural change and cultural change, so that we can look at it and say, yeah, we got to figure out, we have rural areas like Beaver Lake and Worthington, then we have towns like Cape Breol, Chelmsford, the Valley, Lively, and then we have the downtown proper. So we've got to treat them 3 distinct different ways. And that's one of the things you get, one city, one service doesn't work.
No, exactly, yeah.
And you can't...
One shoe doesn't fit all.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct.
And I was going to ask, so right off of that, so you must like the quote then by John F. Kennedy. He says, you know, fix the roof before it's broken, you know, when the sun's shining, more so to say. So basically what you're alluding to is that you're going to have all these different problems and obstacles, but address the things you actually need to address, and not, let's build a casino or something like that, right? That's just a hypothetical, correct?
Correct.
Exactly.
Now, some of the things like the casino's going to come. There's no way that we can stop the casino from coming. So if an individual says, well, that's really bad because people that are on lower income are the ones that are going to be sitting in those seats in the casino spending the money,
exactly.
and we can't control that part of it. I mean, that's going to happen regardless. So what now we have to look at is, and the casino really is not taxpayer dollars, believe it or not. Right now, we receive about $2 million a year on the $40 million that's going into the casino where it's located out in the Azilda.
Okay.
And once it gets relocated, and if that 40 million goes to 80 million, we now have another 4 million coming in to the city to do things with. So a lot of the talk, as you know, right now the hot budget right now is the arena.
Exactly.
Where's the arena going to go? Is the arena going to go downtown? Is it going to go out in the East End? I think are some other people that are possibly in that, but those are the two options. I think right now, as we're sitting here, we are going to have a report back. The one thing that's going on right now is the casino is coming into Ontario, and they're bringing in their new casinos. There's no other area where there's the opportunity with the casino to be with the arena, because even if you look in London, the arena for London, the Budweiser Arena is downtown. The casino is going to be on the outskirts.
Exactly, yeah.
So we are in a I don't want to call it a perfect storm, but we have the opportunity to build something where you could put the event center,
exactly, yeah,
like the one that Dario Zuli just talking to, out on the East End. And what it would do is the two would kind of feed off themselves. One of the things that they talk about is everybody wants to be around where Costco is. I talk about how, whether people like it or not, I believe that our retail district has already moved, and the retail district has moved from the downtown out to where Costco is and the box stores. At amalgamation, we had 14 downtowns. What do I mean by that? In the Valley, they had their own downtown at the time. My downtown is Lively. If you get a gift from me at Christmas time, it comes from either the Lively gift shop or Walden Home Hardware or the Gene Machine or any of the stores that are in my area. And so that's my downtown.
Absolutely.
And so I still recognize that, and as a rural councillor, I'm very protective of that. I have people from Beaver Lake who are 100% bilingual, first Finn and second English. And when they come into town, they come into the Lively area, they go to the bank, they go over to the liquor store, to the beer store,
exactly, yeah,
get their groceries, and if they need to go to the hardware store, they do that, and then they go back home.
People take pride in that too,
that's
obviously,
right.
from where they are. Yeah.
And they're not going to change, and they're not going to come any further unless it's for an appointment at 65 Larch Street.
Exactly.
So, and we have that all over. We have that in Cape Real, we have that in back. We have all these outlying areas that are very community oriented, and so that's where we've got to really, we've got to get back to that and say, okay, let's fix that. And yeah, let's make amalgamation work, because we can never demalgamate. It would bankrupt the city, and it just won't happen that way. So strategically, and as we know, and we can talk about this in a second, but we know right now that for the first year in Canada last year, the population of 15 and under was less than the population of 65 and older. So population of 15 and younger was less than population of 65 and older. So that whole 65
the sector,
yes, that is growing. Right now, a happily married, and as a chartered financial consultant, I know these things, a happily married couple at the age of 65, the chances of one living to 90 is 50%. The chances of one living to 95 is 25%.
Okay.
So mortality has changed. What does that mean? We've got to prepare our community for an older community, And as our community gets older, our seniors are becoming a more important and a larger group.
Definitely, it's a bigger number, and that's something you're going to deal with. Something I want to interject with right off of that fact. So going off of, obviously, it's going back. I said you were a numbers guy at the beginning of this interview. Backing this up for a second. So if we're going to have to deal with, the issue of if people are living longer, and then we have to be able to accommodate them, I want to back this up from a broader sphere for a second. So do you take the generation we're going into now, being that you're a financial guy, how do you feel about? I think there's a big issue we're about to hit here within the financial sector with financial education. A lot of these students, for instance, are the ones they don't have the financial backing. So you're saying, the casino comes in, we're in our little communities, but then we want to go, you're going to have these people into casinos jumping money into it. I want to back this up for a second. Sorry, I threw this off a little bit. How do you think we can deal with that issue of getting more financial education so that we can make better decisions? Like you said, if you're coming from the numbers side of it, where numbers don't lie.
In the schooling sector, in the business sector, within the community.
Within the community, in the sense, within the schooling, so that they have the education to make these decisions to say, okay, this is where it is. So we're not going to dump a bunch of money into something we don't need. For instance, like you said, the want and the need kind of thing. I think like one of the issues primarily is that if you're looking at this or saying, well, we're going to put all this money into this, but just backing that up from an individual basis, I think there's a major issue in terms of financial literacy where people are putting their money in general.
Oh, okay.
That's where I went. Sorry, I digressed on the wrong fact there.
I get invited to speak at schools.
For sure.
And talk to the business classes and that. One of the things I always say to them, I said, if I was a school teacher, I would start everybody off with 100%. When you walked in the door in September, you get 100%. And then we start peeling back grades from there. So as long as you can get 50% to get out the door, then you're going to be doing well. So give everybody 100% and work backwards on that. What we don't have, and what I say is what we're really missing in the education sector, be it the Catholic Board, the
Rainbow Board,
whatever the case is a good laid out financial program. And what they should be doing, I believe, is they shouldn't have to depend on the teachers to learn all those financial things.
Sure.
Bring a guy in like myself who I love what I do. I work
with people, help people.
I work 80 hours a week. I work 7 days a week at
Absolutely.
this. And people say to me, they say, well, you're going to burn yourself out. And I said, well, no, not really, because it's like a mechanic. A mechanic, when he goes home at night, he's got a big garage in his backyard, a lot of them.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then they go in the garage, they
spin wrenches, yeah.
And they spin wrenches till 11 o'clock at night. Their buddies come over and they hang out. Well, I'm in the garage all day.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm in my garage, I'm spinning wrenches, and what I'm doing when I'm spinning my wrenches is talking to people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I do this all day, what we're doing right now.
I can actually attest that. Mike's always in the gym, literally 7 days a week. I'm there, we're working. It's a mindset more so than everything.
Absolutely.
It's how you carry people, and I just want to interject, this is very important. People always say that, well, what if you're going to hit burnout? You're going to hit this type of burnout. And I tell them this, as long as you love what you're doing, you're waking up with that smile, that pleasurable feeling, you're never going to hit that burnout stage. There's going to be days you're tired, you get hit. But at the end of the day, it's that passion that'll give you that energy to kind of go forward. And for you, you get your passion and energy. You love helping people, kind of work in the room. That's the term. I like the same thing. And I find like people say, "Oh, I'm going to retire at 40 years old." It's like I'll never retire because you love what you do. You're programmed like that consistently to go into that environment, no matter what happens. And then as a society here, and you're a politician, so this is very important. I would say honestly, almost 85% of our population, they're working a job they don't want to, and it sucks because it's almost as if the observation is we're like caged animals. They have to go to a job because they have to pay the bills and so forth.
I wish I had $1 for every time I heard somebody say, I have 1 year, 6 months, and 42 hours to change or to retire, and then I'm looking forward to retirement. The biggest problem with retirement is people don't plan a good retirement.
Exactly.
So they plan all the way up, they're good at saving, but then they go, okay, I'm retired. Now what do I do? And then what you find is a lot of them come back into the workforce because they retire for a year or two, and they're going to Tim Hortons at 5 o'clock in the morning, and they're sitting with their buddies, and they're complaining about their old job for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
The bank's going down,
and then they realize that they have nothing to do, so they end up going to Walmart, Home Hardware, Canadian Tire, and they get a part-time job. Some because they need the money,
definitely,
and some because they just want something to do. And actually, believe it or not, studies are done on this, and it is proven that the best employees are these retired people that come back into the workforce because they show up on time, they don't call in sick, they eat their lunch at 12, they go back to work at 12:30. So
No excuse.
That's right. So it's interesting because we have graduations coming up, and I have the opportunity to speak at some of them. And what I say is I want to leave a few points with the children to understand where they're going in their next stage in life. One of the points that I talk about is attitude. And
Absolutely.
Skill and knowledge accounts for 20% of what you do each day. 8% is knowledge, 12% is skill, 80% is attitude. And attitude makes a big difference.
So true.
And attitude, the difference is if two pieces of paper, or two job resumes come in, and I'm interviewing them, the one with the best attitude, and they're the same, and the one with the best attitude is always going to win.
So true.
And that's exactly what we are. One of the things that I tell people also, and I can draw a correlation to politics too, I try to explain to the children that in your life, 10% of the people out there are going to like you. And that's going to be your mom, your dad, your brothers, your friends that you hang around with. 70% aren't going to really care one way or another. You know, gee, that's too bad. He lost that fight. Boy, a car got
Something
banged
happened there,
and
yeah.
something happened. That's really too bad.
They're in their own mind.
They don't really care what happens one way or another. And then there's 20% that aren't going to like you no matter what, because you've got gel in your hair, you've got a tan, you wear the fancy
Exactly, got a nice
jackets.
suit on, you look good.
They don't like that, and the more and more you try and make them like you, the more and more they're going to dislike you.
Absolutely.
So I try and tell the children, don't worry about that 20%. And one of the other things, and people have to realize in life, and I'm digressing a little bit here.
That's okay, yeah.
You'll only ever have 3 or 4 best friends.
Definitely.
You know, when you're 25 now,
23, 24 this month. Don't even worry. Yeah,
okay.
We're right there.
So at 24, you know, you say, well, gee, I got all these friends. But what they really are is acquaintances. Your best friends are going to be the one when one of your family members passes and you hadn't seen that best friend for 10 years, and they show up at the door and you say, geez, I was waiting for you to come.
Oh, is that, yeah.
So that's one of the things. And then what I try and teach the children is you've got to stand for something, because if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. So a lot of times when I'm sitting in that council chamber and I know I'm going to vote no and everybody else is going to be voting yes, I repeat to myself, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing.
Absolutely. I think that's so important not to interject with this. I tell people all the time, and I don't mean it with an arrogant lens to it, but I tell everyone, I'm like, we're not all Mother Teresa, you know, like everyone, but even you take that, a woman like that was so, you know, out there, selfless to help people, and you even have guys like Christopher Hitchens who will go write books about her and say, oh, she was in it for this, right? So no matter what, and I say that a lot, like you got to put the target on your back. And when you put the target on your back, it doesn't matter what you do. It's like, oh, you're promoting every day. I'm running a business. You know, you want to do free advertising, all this different stuff. And exactly off of what you said with the 2 slices of paper, it's always the attitude. So I deal with a lot of people like yourself, and I always tell them the same thing: the distinguishing factor sells. You know, if you're meeting someone that walks through the room, you shake their hand, hey, how are you? But then you meet that guy that's kind of got some energy, looks good, like you said, you got the suit on, but you're very nice. Hey, how are you? How's your day going? You kind of go a little bit further. It'll stay with people, and it stays on a little bit of a different psychological wavelength, and that's how you stand out. Do you want to be the same or stand out? And that's what I tell students. And it's the ones, if you look at these top celebrities, these athletes, it's the ones with the personality that are nice, that aren't, you know, these kind of arrogant guys. That well, some of them are, but most of them that stand out, it's always something different about them.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to let that shine out, and that's when you get the creativity, the innovation as a politician. Then you start to see change. Guys like yourself are out there promoting different things. You're going against the grain, and all of a sudden that gets people thinking differently. And that's the basis of my philosophy, and that's why I wanted to bring you on this show, because you're so different, Mike. And like we said, the role counselor in that sense. So basically what I'm trying to allude to, and I want to ask, as a politician, I mean, when you're about to go up and vote no and go against the grain, what are you thinking? Like, what do you have any kind of mantras or things you're thinking, well, I just have to do it for the people because it's the majority? Or, like, walk me through this for a second.
So that...
When you got to go you got to be
question.
controversial.
Good question. Well, one, it has to make sense. So I have to listen to the people first. So they come out to me and I do a sample, and not everybody's going to agree. But if the majority say, Michael, this is what we want. This is what we want. We don't want Mailey Drive. We don't want Maley Drive because that's long overdue, that project.
Absolutely.
And even though everybody is telling us we want that Maley Drive, then when I look at the numbers and I sit back and I say, well, geez, you know what? These numbers, when you look at it and you add it all up, we could take that money and spend it back into our infrastructure before we start spending on something else. It was very interesting because when the Prime Minister came here, and I don't really believe Council knew that the Prime Minister was coming. I believe there were some people that knew.
Okay.
Council didn't know that the Prime Minister was showing up until a special date that they told us that he was going to be showing up. And I think that's another reason why they wanted me to vote yes to that, because they wanted the whole council voting in the direction of that.
Definitely.
But the interesting part about it is one of the reporters said to the Prime Minister, you know, this Maley Drive is a very, very controversial issue. You're giving us $30 million to endorse Maley Drive. The Prime Minister stopped right there and said, no. He says, I'm giving $30 million to the municipality. Where they decide to spend it is up to them.
Exactly.
So I was led to believe if we didn't spend it on Maley Drive, and I said, I don't want the money then, but if we don't spend it on Maley Drive, then we're not going to get that money. But we would have had that anyways. And we could have put it to projects that are in need. And I'm not saying that, take out the fact that whether or not we're going to debate if Maley Drive is a good project or a bad project. But again, we got to go to that priority list.
Exactly. What do you need done?
And the priorities have to be emergency services, police, fire, EMS, garbage, roads, snow removal. All the essential services are the things that we should be focusing on.
Definitely.
And sometimes people don't see it, because I know there are possibly some of my colleagues that really don't get out to the rural areas. They don't get out to the Beaver Lakes, to the Levacs, whatever the case may be, and that's unfortunate, but that's just the dynamics of council. And people refer to us as, oh, you're a city councillor,
yeah.
Oh, you're a ward councillor, a rural councillor. We are councillors at large, so we vote on all the issues for the good of the city, but yet I still have 12,000 people in my ward that I have to be their voice, and when they call me, I have to return their phone call, and I have to respond to their needs and their desires and everything that they want. They tell me what to do. I don't make decisions. And I was just in a previous interview where the interviewer was very aggressive.
Sure.
And
not like this one. I'm laid back on this. I'm letting you. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts.
This is good. No Muay Thai going on.
Yeah. No.
And so I said no. I said we are not, and I'm repeating myself from earlier, but we are not in a position of grandeur. Our role is to listen to what the people have to say. And we base our decision on what the people are saying. We've had bylaws that we've actually had to repeal. So we had the 5 to 7 in the morning with the bear bylaw about putting the garbage out.
Okay, yeah.
Had to take that back. And I was against that. And then the other one that was just Councillor Montpellier and myself were for was a $50 backyard fire permit. Do you remember that?
I thought I seen that go through, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it went through, but now we had to repeal it. I had more phone calls on the $50 backyard fire permit, and I voted against it.
Exactly, yeah.
And what happened was people, when you start affecting their lifestyle, when you start affecting their leisure time, people get angry. Exactly. And they were more angry about that $50 permit than the Arts Gallery going downtown, or the Greenway. The Elgin Street Greenway, they're talking right now about that 1 kilometer of road being of $8.5 million. $8.5 million for 1 kilometer of road. They're going to put bike paths, make it really pretty.
Oh, and use some pavement there.
And that. That 8.6 million will do 77 kilometers of surface treatment road. In my ward, there's 3,600 kilometers within the greater city of Sudbury. My ward has 800, which is 22.5% of the lion's share. I would love to have another 30 kilometers of surface treated road out of my area.
Yeah, instead of 1 kilometer, it doesn't make any sense.
No, and we have roads where there's people's safety involved, or if a person goes off the side of the road, they're going to be in a 7-foot river. And there's no markers along the side. There's markers, sorry, but there's no guardrails along the side of the road.
And they're dealing with stupid issues that, well, not stupid, I shouldn't say wrong terminology, but they're dealing with the issues we don't really have to assess. I think it's something important, and I want to do this for the sake of observation. I find a lot of time, especially we have so much noise in our world today, right? Everything's, you're getting shot at with Facebook, social media, everything else out there. I find a lot of time, it's like you said, people don't address these issues until it's either too late, or it becomes to a point where all of a sudden, like you said, they're charging them a certain amount of money, then they have to pay for it, and then they get angry. And that's the only thing with people. So as a leader, like I tried saying at the beginning of the interview, when you're dealing with so many different types of people, like you're on the police board, you're dealing with those type of people, then just the everyday people, as a counselor, how can you work together as, just a person? Like, what are some of the strategies you use so you can kind of come together as a unit? I know sometimes you have to make a controversial decision that goes against what people want, but what do you use? Like, do you know what I mean?
So what I've always learned is you listen to the people.
As a leader. As a
leader, you listen to the people. You never tell them what to do. You never tell a person what to do. You show them what to do. And I always say, if you're having a hard time, get on my back and I'll carry you through.
I like that, yeah.
So I believe in the old analogy, leading by example, but listening to the people. When I was in the financial industry, I had a high position in one of the corporate companies that I worked for, and I have to say, in the whole time that I was there, I never told anybody what to do. I showed them what to do, and that's the whole trick behind everything.
That's huge.
I remember the bell would go off at 4:30 to end the day, and the first week that I was in this one particular area, actually I was in Vancouver for 9 months, running the West Coast operation out there. So you got an Italian from Creighton running an operation that was mostly Asian, Vietnamese and Chinese mix in there. And the most interesting thing was, when I first got there was nobody there. Everybody was tripping over themselves to get out the door at 4:30. By the time I finished, never told anybody they had to stay late, but I remember the day that they called me and said, we're moving you on. We got another assignment for you. We're bringing you back into Ontario. And I walked out into the area, and I walked what they used to call it the bullpen, and that's where they had their workstations and that. And there's probably 70% of the people there. Never once told them they had to do it. Just showed them what to do.
You literally are the definition of lead by example, and that's how you get people moving. I find, especially today, it's like, well, do this, and then right away it creates a psychological resentment. You're like, I'm not going to do that. And I've seen you every day. I can contest that in the gym. I show up. I'm the same thing. I want to lead by example. I like to preach a little bit to just get your content out, and just I like having thought-provoking content, because I find, if you're getting the same generic stuff, it's like hitting someone over and over again. They've seen it so many times. You have to be thought-provoking, controversial, like yourself. So to close this interview off, I think it's important. I know this is a little bit different, but as a politician and having, a versatile background, you're not too heavy on social media. Do you find maybe to get your message out more, would you find it's an effective way? So, you have all these people coming in, the older generation, then you have the new generation on the phones. Like, I make a joke that my phone's a weapon, right? I can use it to do a lot. But would you find maybe to escalate some of these problems and get them dealt with, maybe the online sphere would help a little bit more so with social media and such? I know it's a big question.
Yeah, I think after 2.5 years, I believe social media has a much larger impact than I believed initially as a brand new counselor. I'm like my father was when I was your age and he was my age, and he would call me up and say, Michael, you got to get over here. I said, what's the matter, Dad? He just said, there's something wrong with the VCR. It's flashing 12. So I think just by the way my character is, I would rather be out working with the people.
Shaking hands and moving. Yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time on my phone is used for email and for returning phone calls, or now texts.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
once you're on the text, that's good. Yeah, that's quick. Yeah.
And because of police and the city, and I'm in my financial world, I'm monitored by the Ontario Security Commission.
For sure.
I have to carry 2 phones. So both phones and private message. They call private messages on Facebook.
PMs or PMs or direct message. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are coming in. I'm getting those. I'm getting texts. Each phone holds 25 voicemail. There was many days where those were filled up twice because
seriously?
Yeah.
You must be on your phone all the time, I'm assuming.
I've got phone calls to make when we're done.
As soon as we me too. Yeah, I know.
So, but yes, I think everything has its place, and I realize now that social media is bigger than myself and my naivety,
sure.
as if that's even a word.
Don't worry. No, yeah.
And you look at Kerwin, who has that Valley
his
Facebook
page.
site.
I've seen his page. See, just like that.
It's huge.
It is. Wow.
And he has I forget. I know it's over 10,000 people that are on there. Now I don't know how many are actually going and reading what's on there, or if they've just joined on and they don't go to it every day. Interesting enough, you know, all our stuff that comes from the city is fully bilingual, which is great.
Yeah.
On the city website, we have English and we have French. Less than 3% of the hits are on the French web pages. They all go to the English site. So maybe it's not a lot of French people going there. So that's why I think not only social media is important, you still have to have word of mouth.
For sure, and I was going to say, well, word of mouth too, especially from a marketing standpoint, that's what'll spread your message. You see a lot of these companies, they'll throw out different projects. You know, you can promote online, but it's just basically people see it. But I found sometimes even with myself with certain things, it's that people are like, I really like that, and then all of a sudden it gives an authority, like, oh, that person liked that, opposed to just having an ad by Pepsi Cola. So the reason I want to ask you about the social media thing, it's just because as an influencer like yourself, I think it's such an important aspect today. And one of my mentors, his name is Mark Lack. He's out of California. So his mentor is the gentleman's name. What's his last name? He's part of The Secret. John Asseroff. So this gentleman's part of that program called The Secret, and he always told me, he said, Connor, you know, as a speaker or someone that's a personality, it's nice. Like, I know you're focusing locally, right? But when you want to scale your message, you know, you can go on stage after stage after stage. But he's like, if you want to go to that next level globally, you go online, right? Because I can scale everything, my businesses, and you can transact with people from China all over. So I noticed you started on the social media more. So I remember before you were kind of against it. And I think just as an influencer now, I just wanted to ask what your thoughts were on it, because it's so powerful. People are constantly seeing you, and as I market, when I try to market myself, I call it omnipresence 101. You know, try to be everywhere, even if people don't like you. Like you said, there's only 20% that really won't. They're constantly seeing you, and then even if they don't, they're seeing your content. If you're helping people like we do, that's my rule, is that, you know, always give back more than you get, and that's the way to win in society. And would you agree with that?
I agree with that. That's a very good comment.
Your philosophy too is very similar to myself, and I look up to you, you know, as someone. That's why I want to have you. You're actually probably the most distinguished person I've had on the show in terms of, you know, you have the background of, you know, a financial gentleman. You're in the political sphere. You're an entrepreneur, and you're dealing with so many different people. If you can leave anybody with an important message, Mike, what would it be? Something you've learned, just one of those golden nuggets of information you can say to people that they can take with them. And you can say it right into the camera. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
a heavy question.
That's very interesting, because I thought I made a whole bunch of good comments.
You did. You made so many.
I think what happens is, and I'm going to go to politics, 50% of the people involved, the other 50% do not get involved. That's what I've learned. And the only time they get involved if it's an issue personally for themselves. What I said earlier, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. I think we should all take the opportunity to get involved. I never peep my horn at another car when I'm driving down the street, because I figure that 10% of the people will never realize they made a mistake, and the other 90% realize, oh, after I made the mistake, yeah, I made a mistake, I shouldn't have cut that person off. I also let people get in front of me at any time. And I believe if we continue to do that, I'm an eternal optimist. Maybe one day we'll have all polite, courteous drivers on the road. So why am I telling you that? I'm saying get involved, be courteous, and try to do things differently. Dare to be different, do nothing ordinary.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. Just click that there.